The command line. Many Linux users fear the command line for some reason. I assume it's because they just haven't had the experience with the command line. All they know is their familiar graphical user interfaces. But when you can learn the command line, when you can harness and leverage the power of the command line, you can do some amazing things in Linux. But to increase your speed and productivity at the command line, there are some tips and tricks you really need to know to be able to get the most out of the command line. So today I'm going to share with you some tips and tricks that will save you time when you're at the command line. Let's get started. So the first thing I need to do, of course, is pull up a terminal for this demonstration. So I think most shell users know about the history command. I'm going to show you the history command, not because this is what I wanted to cover, but I wanted to make a point with this. So this is your shell's history, all the commands I've run recently. Let me just pick one. In my shell's history, number 1535 here is htop. So to run that, typically to run something from your history, you do the exclamation point and then the number 1535. And you see I get some output in the terminal. Htop appears. Do I really want to run that? Hit enter if that's what I want to run, or control C if I don't want to run it. So that is, the basics of the history command, but a lot of people don't know there's more you can do with the exclamation point than just exclamation point and then a number from your shell's history. For example, did you know that you can do exclamation point followed by a command, any command, and it will run that command the exact same way you ran it the last time you ran it? For example, if I did an exclamation point ls, it's going to run the ls command with all the flags that I gave it the last time I ran the ls command. I don't know what I ran last time. It looks like I ran ls space dash lah capital D. So that is a pretty neat trick, and that works with pretty much any command. What if, for example, I wanted to run vim the exact same way I ran vim the last time, which means it's going to open up vim, the document in vim that I opened up last time. Again, I don't know what I did last time in vim, but if I did exclamation point vim and hit enter, it looks like I was editing my awesome window manager config file, the rc.lua file. So if I just hit enter right now, it would open up my rc.lua file in vim. Of course, I don't really need to edit that. So that is a command a lot of new Linux users, a lot of new to the command line users don't know about. It's just exclamation point followed by the name of a command, and it will run that same command that you did last time. So if I did exclamation point cd, I don't know if I actually cd'd into a different directory, I specified a specific directory, but if I did, well, apparently I did. So it would cd into that directory that I cd'd into the last time I ran that command. The other thing you should know about is the 2 exclamation points in a row. So what if I ran this command, pacman dash capital S lowercase y lowercase u in Arch that updates my system? I cannot perform this operation because I am not root. Duh. So how do I perform this as root? Well, the easy way to do this is to type the word sudo, of course, and then pacman dash syu. But you know what? The last command that you ran in the shell is 2 exclamation points in a row. So sudo space exclamation point, hit enter. There we go. Is that really what I want to run? No. I don't need to update my system here on camera, but that saves you a ton of time, because how many times have you typed this very long and tedious and convoluted command, hit enter, boom, you didn't give it root privileges, and now you have to go back and sudo and then type that very long command. No, you don't have to do that. Sudo space exclamation point, and you're done. Another neat trick with your shell is Control-R. Type Control-R. And look, I've got back I search. Now, what exactly is this? Well, it's going to search through your commands, your history, basically. So what if I wanted to search through my history for the last time I had the word install as part of a command? Looks like I ran sudo pip install uberzug, and that was months ago, but it remembers that. I could hit enter right now if I really wanted to run that command. It's going to ask me for my root password, so let me cancel that. Again, just for a demonstration, Control-R once again, and vim, and it remembers the last time I ran vim, which of course was just a few seconds ago, vim, and then my rc.lua file. Control-C to cancel that. So that is Control-R. Now, what if you want to run multiple commands, like 2 or 3 or even 4 commands at a time? Typically, you probably think, well, I got to run one command, then run the next, then run the next. Well, no, you don't have to do that. You can string these commands together all in one line. So how would you do that? Well, an example would be take your Debian or Ubuntu based systems. I'm not on Debian or Ubuntu today, but how do you update your system? Well, if you do it at the command line, you do sudo apt update. You run that, and then you run sudo apt upgrade. 2 different commands. What if you wanted to do them all at the same time? Well, you would simply string them together like this: sudo apt update semicolon space sudo apt upgrade. And it would run the update, then it would run the upgrade. This also works when you're stringing together 2 commands: sudo apt update and 2 ampersigns, and then sudo apt upgrade. Either one of those works. So I can't run that command to show you that in action because, again, I'm not on Debian or Ubuntu. So let's do something else. Why don't I run the ls command and then semicolon and then cd into a different directory? How about root? Just for something, silly to run. And there. First of all, it ran the cd or the ls command in my home directory, and then it changed me to the root directory. So it ran both commands. So I didn't have to, cd and then ls or ls and then cd and just run them all at one time. If I wanted to do it with the 2 amper symbols, let's do that one more time: ls and then and then cd back into home. So no other arguments. CD will just take us back to home. Run that. It ran the ls on my root folder because I was already there, and then it CD'd me back into my home directory. So that is how you put together multiple commands at the command line. One of the things that you often do at the command line is catting a file. Catting a file so it spits out the output in the terminal for you to read. Now, that's great if the file is not very long, but if it's a really long file, it can cause you some problems. For example, I'm going to run my last vim command, mainly just so I can get this document name, because I know this is a long document. Now, if I wanted to, I could cat this document. So assume this is like some system config file, not just my awesome config. Maybe I'm catting, I don't know, something in the /etc folder. And I cat it. Well, it's a very lengthy document. Now I have to scroll back up through the document to try to find, and it takes me to the very end. Cat, you always get to the very end and you're at the prompt again, so it doesn't even start you at the top of the document. This is a bit tedious, so what I would do is, if I actually want to start at the top and read a document, don't use cat. Use less. So less and then space, name of document. And now you're at the top of the document, and with the enter key, you can scroll through the document at your leisure and hopefully find what you're looking for. Now, one other neat thing you can do with catting a file that makes things easier, if it's a very lengthy file, which this one is, you can cat, name of a file, and then the pipe symbol, and then use the grep tool to search if you know exactly what you're searching for. For example, I know there's a line in my awesome config file for a key binding for IRC, my IRC chat client. So if I grep space IRSSI and hit enter, it's going to cat my awesome config, and then it's going to grep out the lines that contain the word IRC. If I hit enter, there you go. Apparently there were 2 lines in the config file that contained the word IRC, and it catted them out. That way I don't have to read that massive config file. I knew exactly what I was looking for instead of me opening it and then doing a search with less, or even opening it in Vim and doing a search in Vim. Well, if I know exactly what I'm looking for, cat it out, pipe symbol grep, what you're looking for, boom, Bob's your uncle. Now that command I just ran with cat and then using the pipe symbol and grep to grep a search term, that is something thousands, maybe millions of command line users typically do, is use cat and grep in combination. But you don't actually have to do that. You can use grep by itself. You don't even need cat. So if I go back to that last command I just ran, and I'm going to take the file name, but I'm going to get rid of cat. And instead I'm going to grep, and then in quotes I'm going to do a search term. How about IRC once again, end quote, and then the name of the file. If I do that, I get the same thing. So I don't even have to invoke cat. I don't have to cat and then pipe it into grep No, there's no reason to even involve cat, even though, like I said, most command line users probably do cat and then pipe symbol grep. No, you don't have to do that. Just if you know what you're looking for, grep, followed by the search term, followed by the file you're searching in. And the last tip I'm going to leave you with on this video is if you really want to be quicker at the command line, to be faster and more productive, obviously you have to practice. You have to practice doing stuff at the command line, and you have to practice, you have to learn these commands, right? When you come across a command at the command line, you don't know anything about it. Read up on it. That's what I try to do. Spend a little time with it. That way the next time you come across it, you know, I remember what that command does. So when you come across something like the find command, for example, read the man page. Every program, just about every program out there, should have a man page. So type man for manual, space, and then the name of the command. Man find gives me the man page for the find command. Now this is a gigantic man page because find is a very powerful program. I'm going to quit out of that. But what you could do is you could install a easier to read man page alternative like TLDR is one I quite like. TLDR space find. And this gives you a much easier to read man page. It gives you real world examples of how to use the find command. Find files by extension, and here's the command as an example. Find files by matching multiple patterns, and here's the example command to run. So TLDR is great. I suggest installing something like TLDR or maybe cheat sheets as a man page alternative, but just reading the man page is a good idea. So spend time, learn more commands, learn more flags with the commands you already know. So we were doing some stuff with ls earlier. Do you know all the commands with ls? Well, why don't you man ls and see all the flags that you can use with the ls command that you're probably not using. Also, when you figure out that you like to use something like ls space -lah as your default ls command, well, instead of having to type that every time, why don't you create a bash alias, right? Why don't you open up your bash RC file, assuming you're using bash. And in here, why don't you put a alias? Where are my aliases? Well, I've got a few at the bottom here. Well, here is my ls alias. So I have ls alias to ls space -- color equals auto. But what if I wanted to change that? And actually, I kind of do want to change that. I don't use bash. I'm in Arco Linux, and Arco, like most Arch Linux distributions, uses ZSH by default. So I've been using ZSH a lot here lately. But what if I want my default ls command to always be LAH for the flags? So I just changed that. Now all I need to do is escape, right, quit. And now when I run ls, every time I run ls, it'll be ls-LAH. Before I go, I need to thank a few special people. This show was made possible by Ansem, First Chris, Second Chris, Dylan, George, Mitchell, Natek, Philip, Rob, Robert, Sam, and Willie, the producers of the show. They're my highest tiered patrons over on Patreon. Without these guys, this show about saving time at the command line would not have been possible. This show was also brought to you by all those fine ladies and gentlemen, all those names you see on the screen, that ever-growing list of names that help support my work over on Patreon. Again, without each and every one of those ladies and gentlemen, this show wouldn't be possible. A sincere thank you to those guys. If you'd like to support the channel, please consider doing so. You'll find me at DistroTube over on Patreon. All right, guys. Peace.